There he is.
Ah,
Looking good, my man.
yes, indeed. So, sorry, I apparently didn't do it right. I've only had about 50,000 Zoom meetings that I've created, and you know, I don't know why I can't get it right, but
It's the new occupational hazard.
sure is. So, what's been going on in Washington? How you been?
You know, this is really different. I mean, it's just, we talk from time to time. We all are talking to folks as best we can. But this is like nothing we've ever seen. I was telling somebody on the phone just today, I said, we're tired of telling you this is unprecedented and you're tired of hearing it. But, we just, every morning, I think everybody wakes up and says, what the hell, really.
I know I do every morning. I mean, I'm sitting here, I wake up in the morning, I get oriented, and I'm like, is this still happening? Holy shit, it really is.
Well, it's so different and it's unusual, but perspective has never been more important. The whole idea of the fact that our member companies and your subscribers are still working every day is awesome, and we can't forget that. I had my car service today, put on my mask and went and did all those things. And the guy that checked the car in, man, he said, it is tough. He said, we had about 5 weeks there where we were way off because nobody was out. And he said, on service, we were open and we would sell a car, but he said, nobody's buying. And I just think that perspective is really, really important during this time period. And, what you're doing, I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt, but, providing that steady stream of information has never been more important.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to stay busy, thank God, and still getting paid. And like you said, we were very fortunate. I think it was Otto von Bismarck who said that God saves drunkards, fools, and United States beer wholesalers. And, and God bless. We're very fortunate, especially in that tier to be doing. There's been certainly some furloughs and hardship, but as a whole, it's been a pretty sustaining business, and thank God, because wow, I mean, what a testament to the DSD model, right, Craig?
I think it's a testament to the DSD model. It's a testament to the spirit of these members. You cannot pick up an industry. You can't pick up a newsletter. You can't. Every single day there's good news of our folks giving back and doing amazing things. Everything from the hand sanitizer to repositioning rolling inventory to stock store shelves. It just goes on and on and on. I got to tell you, Harry, I am super proud of this industry. And, I think about it, and I think some of the things that we were able to do early on were really important. One of the things, it's funny, Jim McGreevy and I were on the telephone that first weekend with a whole group of food association execs, and we were all working on how to kind of position ourselves as it relates to being termed and deemed essential. And I got to admit, the state associations did an excellent job. We were in constant communication with them as they were talking to their governors, they were talking to their alcohol regulators, they were talking to public safety folks. Everybody kind of doing their own advocacy effort to ensure that these businesses would be open. I remember one of the folks from one of the larger food organizations said, hey, do you want me to write in here beer distribution? Do we want to say beer industry? Do you want to say alcohol? And I said, no. I said, there is no real reason to call ourselves in or out, because that could create problems, because somebody may say, hey, if we're closing churches, maybe we should close beer distributors. Maybe that's not an essential grocery item. And so I was very pleased that by how quickly the industry could work and how quickly everybody coalesced around this common idea of we've got to keep our people safe, but we got to keep these doors open.
Yeah. And I too have been impressed with how, I've talked to, like you have, distributors large and small, and everybody's got their own little take on how they've dealt with this. And I spoke with a really small wholesaler the other day, and he was like, I go, have you furloughed? And he goes, no, every person is so crucial to us. And it's funny because you would think a small wholesaler would be the first to furlough, right? But it struck me that no, on-premise is going to come back. We're going to need these people, and it's been a real testament to I think the leadership that these guys have provided, and also getting together and putting their brand hats on the door, and having these calls together to figure out how the hell they're going to deal with this. Because let's face it, New York is way different from Des Moines, and yet Des Moines can learn from New York, right? With Manhattan and what's got on there.
Well, and I'll add to that. We have New York, I think, has helped all of us deal with this. One of the things we started doing, Harry, every day we do a call with our officers, just because that's 5 more elected folks that are talking to different distributors every day, helps us be grounded as we're dealing with whatever the issue might be, and working to provide a steady stream of information and of best practices to our members. But we also started convening a weekly board of directors meeting. And one of the members of that of our national board of directors is Bill Bissett from Manhattan Beers. And I said this at our call on Monday afternoon, because Bill was very complimentary of the job that MBWA is doing, providing information and getting real-time information out to members. And I said, Bill, I appreciate the thank you, but I can't thank you enough, because you sharing with us in real time and making your team available with us in real time. I said, it sounds corny, but you've saved people's lives. And I mean, that's that kind of spirit and that kind of recognition is really, really important. I mean, when we first kind of began to see this thing unfold, I made the comment, I said, folks, this is extremely serious. We've got to be very, very sensitive, because there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be affected very differently around the country. And I said, in its own way, this is all very sobering. Those 3 S's, I think, have been the touchstone around the way that the industry's dealt with this. And that doesn't mean that we can't do a great job as we work to open the on-premise markets, and as we work to inject and continue some sense of normalcy. But we got to keep that in mind. Very, very serious.
One of the things that distributors, we've been very positive so far, so let's get negative. One of the things that distributors have really complained to me about, there's a real lack of clarity from certain suppliers on supply and what to do with kegs. And 50%, 70%, it's great. They didn't have to do anything. Let's acknowledge that. But at the same time, it's been pointed out that if you look at the mathematics of it, the breweries really aren't losing that much money, because they've already booked their profit on the keg. So it's really a wash, and the distributor's one that's eating. What have you been hearing?
Well, and I think you kind of got to treat the problems. Those are both key issues, but one's an apples and one's an orange. Let's talk about keg beer first of all. I mean, kegs are designed to be blown out. They're designed to be run through. They're designed to be picked up empty. They're designed to be returned empty. We've never had any kind of circumstance like this. Neither have the suppliers. So the word that comes to mind for that, for everybody, and that includes the retailers too, is patience. Everybody's got to chill out. I mean, I had bunches and bunches of telephone calls from folks. What do we do? What do we do? And I said, look, the product's it's going to code out. It's going to expire. It's going to be unmerchantable. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to steal. They're not going to steal a full rotten keg any more than they're going to steal an empty,
Right.
blown out keg. So everybody needs to remain calm. Kind of like a young Kevin Bacon in Animal House when he says, "Everyone remain calm." But that's what we got to do as it relates to that problem, and we got to have patience on all sides.
Right.
I never heard the term decant a keg. I mean, I'm hearing this story. I'm like, how are you going to get all that beer in that little wine container? I mean, that makes no sense. So everybody is starting from scratch. We're seeing people step up. We're seeing people share the burden, and we've got to build on that. One of the other things that we've done is we were able to coalesce early in this process and at least get a communication in to Capitol Hill around the idea of this expiring product. And we were able to get the Beer Institute, the Brewers Association, NBWA, and the American Beverage Licensees, which is the organization that represents the on and off independent retailers, all to coalesce around the idea of a tax credit for expiring product. We talked to a number of politicians, and their feedback was, you know what? We get this issue. We don't want to do this 15 times for 15 different industries. So we've had great success talking to folks in the food industry who have a similar problem. And that process is moving forward.
Yeah,
but
I mean, and
we've got to be patient.
Like when let me just stop you, and then I'll let you continue. But I don't think people realize that when you take kegs off of a route truck, gravity is helping you. Putting a full keg back up into a route truck is almost, I know that I couldn't do it. You have to be really strong. And I don't know how they would do it. I mean, that's why I think a lot of decanting is secretly going on in the parking lot of the bar in the drain.
Right. The secret decoder ring and the decanting ring. Yeah. No, I look, this has never been dealt with before. And we've all, but there's a lot of good information sharing. There's a lot of good, I know you've seen some of the stuff we've put out. And anytime you're dealing with this, you wrestle with how much of this information to make public. And, some of it has to do with how distributors operate. And so we've been very careful when we're talking about employment or we're talking about best practices as it relates to liability to keep that communication a little bit more privileged. But as it relates to getting rid of perished product, we're flying this, we're building this plane as we're flying it. Now, when it comes to the whole notion of supply, a number of us, separate from the Mexico issue, as we were beginning to see loads slow down that were incoming, and this happened at our board level where folks were saying, hey, I could see a problem in June, July, or August where I'm going to have significant out of stocks. And I think that's something that we've got to be very, very candid about. And the Mexico issue, to me, that's part of what we were talking about when we're talking about the whole notion of the industry remaining essential. That's what happened when the industry wasn't deemed essential. I had a beer wholesaler, you may have seen the same piece of video, the day before this order was issued by the Mexican government that had real-time video from border towns seeing people lining up at the, what is in effect a C-store or a Home D for beer. And people were in lines in automobiles like it was the 1970s and it was the gas shortage. So this is real. And it's very difficult. It's difficult for all of the importers that operate down there. But I do think it's really important that partners, during times of challenge, you got to be brutally honest. You can't bullshit each other. Don't pee on my boots and tell me it's raining, which I know that's something that you're familiar with.
Yeah, well, I pee on my own boots.
Right. Well, I'm just saying.
But yeah, or in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, transparency is key, and this news is flowing in even today that basically both Constellation and Heineken, everything's on allocation at this point, even in big cities as of today, like Chicago. And I think we have to brace ourselves for shortages, even if the Mexican government opens up May 15th. It still takes time to fill this huge pipeline, and even domestic brewers. Miller Molson Coors has admitted that they're going to have supply issues with large packages because who could have solved this coming, and also just aluminum can shortage is now I'm hearing about that.
And I think it's also important that we remind people there is a ton of choice out there. one of the things that's been the best success story of independent distribution and of DSD is the unbelievable choice and variety that you have in the beer industry. And that's going to continue. We, unfortunately are going to see some retail establishments that closed not open up. We are going to see some brewers that closed not open up. And for some of these, it's going to be an absolute disaster, and it's devastating for all of them. But the consumer is going to continue to have beer this summer. Let's not kid ourselves, and let's not be part of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The good news is there's going to be plenty for everyone. We're just going to have to be honest with each other and, make those, execute those contingency plans.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of this situation with Bang Energy? Boy.
Yeah, boy, not a good way to run a railroad. Treat your partners. I mean, if it were a Helen Reddy song, it'd be "This Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady." I'm telling you. But really not well executed and unfortunate. When you look at the growth of that brand and you look at what that network of beer distributors have done to get it established, to get it on the shelves and get it growing, that's a testament to this system. And, when it comes to non-alcohol products, for every beer distributor and really every industry participant, it's a reminder of why we have the regulatory system that we do. The regulatory system for beer allows distributors to go out there and make investments in new and emerging brands because they know that if they share in the building of that brand, that they're going to be compensated if that partner decides to take the business elsewhere. And I realize the contract, there's a contract in place, but it is not reflective of the work that those distributors did building the brand. So Stay tuned. I think this is going to be a very interesting thing to watch, depending on where Bang goes and where Big Pepsi goes.
Right. Well, okay. And that's like they say, fool me once, strike one. Fool me twice, strike three.
That's good. That's good.
So tell me, has Gretchen left you? I mean, what's going on with you and Gretchen? Your wife, how are y'all getting along?
Well, it's funny because our house is a very, very, very fine house, and it is full. We have a lot of folks there with kids all home. Every parent in America is a part-time or a full-time school instructor. We have 2 dogs, and actually we're doing better than you might expect. Although I think there was a time or two that when she did want to kill me. Somebody wrote early in this that not muting your mic on a conference call is the new reply to all. The quickest way to make an absolute ass out of yourself.
That's interesting that you're on these calls with these other, have you learned, because that normally wouldn't happen, right? And
it's
learned from these other.
Oh, we've learned a lot. I'll tell you what we've learned is, don't get me wrong or get me started. We have had challenges with the Tax and Trade Bureau over the years, no doubt about it. But in this case, they moved very quickly and they've been very responsive. They've not gotten in the way of the flexibility that I think a number of folks were seeking, and have been, clear on some of the things that have been very important during this time period. And what was interesting to me is the relationship that we have versus the relationship that some of these other industries have to their regulators. And they're just not as cohesive, and they're not as communicative, and they're not as maybe as regularly maintained. So I think that's a difficulty. You always have the challenge in government of the bureaucrats versus the politicals. And oftentimes you need the politicals to shake the bureaucrats loose. I've seen it go both ways during this deal, and it's been really instructive. But there's been a handful of real heroes that have stepped up, both on the political side and on the bureaucratic side, that have really kicked some things loose. And that's been interesting to learn from.
I have myself been surprised at some of the things, the memos that have come out of the TTB since all of this, because as we know, they are not known and historically for being lightning fast. So
we usually use the term glacial speed, which means hundreds and thousands of years.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I was like, wow, they really moved quickly on certain things that brewers especially needed in the short term. Like the hand sanitizer, I guess.
Well, and being able to reposition beer. I mean, we were pleased at the coverage that the Wall Street Journal gave a couple of weeks ago around the problem, as we're, like I said, working for a larger solution as it relates to expired product. But this could not have happened, as folks know, at a worse time. And I think the ability to move that non-draft beer around was really, really good. As folks began to load the pantry, there were a lot of reports that I got of people being able to reposition pallets of beer from what was ready to be part of St. Patrick's Day or March Madness and get that to the grocery on time, which was very important.
Right. Absolutely. Well, good. Well, anything else that I'm missing?
Well, one of the other big bits of frustration for distributors has been the PPP loan program. PPP, of course, was passed as part of COVID-3, the relief package, with the idea to make capital available for Main Street small business, with the objective of being able to keep people on the payroll. The great thing, I mentioned at the beginning of this, how proud I am of our industry. People have done an amazing job of keeping those folks around. What has been terribly frustrating has been, the after the fact strings that the government has attached to those loans. And that's very, very important. So we have a lot of conversations that are ongoing with the industry. Between us and others and the government, around this issue, because the government, when they issue capital, they reserve the right to put strings on it after the fact, and that's exactly what they've done. Unfortunately, I really believe that was perpetuated by a number of suspects that should not have participated in the program. Publicly traded companies that exceeded the capital.
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and Shake Shack and Taco Cabana and Carnival Cruise. And
those were violative of the first round of guidance, and it's very frustrating to watch this. And just last night, the SBA extended the safe harbor period for another week. So for those business owners that are trying to wrestle with what's right to do, we are working to help folks, understand the rules, because we don't want somebody to wake up some morning and be on the wrong end of an independent inspector general investigation on whether or not they qualified for those dollars. So that is going to be an ongoing challenge, and it's going to be something we're going to keep working on.
That's the thing, Craig, is it was put in place to keep your employees, but you get the money. Do you put it in a separate account? How do you account for it so that it's all going to your employees?
And we've issued lots of guidance and suggestion around that, including segregating those accounts, including ensuring that you're paying for specifically, if you're taking that money, that you're paying for the things that it requires that you spend it on, and that you are just completely, just crazy about the record keeping and the accountability. The good news is beer distributors understand that. They understand that as it relates to product. They're very, very experienced in record keeping and ensuring that they don't run afoul. But as this guidance gets issued after the fact, it is very frustrating for these business owners, and we are working overtime to try to get this as good as it can get as it relates to this program and everything else that's coming down the pike.
Right. Yep. It is very frustrating, and because you just don't know. You don't want to listen. I know you don't want to go afoul of the IRS.
That you do know that. Somebody told me. Yeah, actually, you told me. Yeah. You do not want to do that.
What I love about it. Yeah. So I'm finally getting out from under that. But what I love about this thing is that the IRS is giving companies money and then taxing it back. It's like, why don't they just give 80% of it? Why are we, it's just, that, like you said, they had this program. I don't think Congress intended for the IRS to come back and say, hey, you can't write off salaries, payroll,
Right.
and it's supposed to be for payroll, and you can't write. I mean, really?
But some of that is for the forgivability, and that's the other part of this. I mean, the expression that has its roots in pre-prohibition is there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I think everybody needs to remind that when they participate in a government program. You're not likely to get something for nothing. And I know most people that got in line for that money, they were encouraged by their banker to do it. And when it was first issued, they may have had a fiduciary requirement to go and secure that. As the rules get tweaked, and the government reserves the right to do that, I know that a number of distributors are evaluating where this is. And, we can't tell everybody what to do or to not do, but we can give them advice and remind them to read the fine print. Extremely important. And, as I talked to a distributor just today who decided they were going to give the loan back, that it wasn't worth it. And the response was, Craig, I slept better last night than I did in the previous week and a half. And that, to me, the sleep test, always a good test.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Trust me on that. All right.
Well, I believe you said that the audit and the subsequent action was akin to a root canal followed by a proctologist exam.
It could go either way. Honestly, it wouldn't matter. But yeah, don't fuck with the IRS. That's my
you're right. You're right. Don't fuck with Mr. Zero. Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Craig. I appreciate you coming on, and I know my readers appreciate it. And we'll.
All right, man. Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.